of this session, which is Power to SME and Wadhwani Foundation. And about Power to SME, it was established in year 2012 by the founder and CEO, Mr. R. Narayan. And he came up with a very innovative business model, which is on demand aggregation idea, which is source the raw material from the big manufacturers and supply to the small SMEs, small manufacturers. And this is the entire Power to SME ecosystem. We have four major verticals: Power to SME, which is into raw material procurement and sourcing business. Our vertical Finance Me, it facilitates loans through connecting financial partners with the required SMEs clientele. Our brand SME Shops is the India's biggest B2B e-marketplace for industrial and MRO goods. And we have our NBFC by the name BizFunds, which is a very young contemporary NBFC providing very innovative solutions in raw material financing and working capital financing space. And this is the key product categories where Power to SME deals in. We deal in steel, polymer, paint, yarn, chemicals, and there are several other product categories that you may opt for. The major industrial sectors that we serve to include auto components, electronics, agricultural tools, engineering, and many more there are. With response to the COVID situation, our brand SME Shops, it has come up with the entire range of COVID essential products. So both the enterprise and big corporates and SMEs, they can buy, sell, procure these COVID-19 essential products through SME Shops. We are invested companies. Some of the most reputed venture funds in the country has invested in us. Inventors, Kalari, Excel, Nandan Nilekani is one of our strategic investors. We are also funded by World Bank through its financial arm, International Finance Corporation. These are the few awards that and accolades that we have won since our inception. Worth mentioning is Forbes India Leadership Award, which we won under Outstanding Startup category in year 2018. This social media presence, so anyone interested in knowing about our services may get in touch with us through any of these platforms. And we have with us Mr. Jayat Ghosh. He's from Wadhwani Foundation. I'll request Jayat to kindly take a few minutes to walk you through their very innovative initiative by the name Sahayata program. So Jayat, over to you.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I was on mute. So yeah. So welcome everyone to this webinar. So I'll just take you briefly through what we do at Wadhwani Foundation, and then we'll continue with the webinar. So we're a non-profit organization established 2 decades ago. So we work with the ecosystem of coaches, consultants, investors, and corporates, and help SMEs in their business problems, be it from your funding to growth to marketing strategy to whatever problems SMEs might be having. We have in-house consultants as well as we have consultants who are working with us in our ecosystem to help you out. So again, support of what the kind of support that we do, be it on the customer front, product front, diversification, geographies, new channels like getting into e-commerce, or value chain analysis as well as value chain improvement, partnerships. We help SMEs in all of these fronts. And this is not an exhaustive list. We do custom engagements with SMEs based on their problems also. This is a snapshot of how we go about helping SMEs. And this is very much pertinent to the COVID situation right now, that we have solutions which will help you manage the crisis better, solutions which will help you recover from the crisis, and post-recovery, there are solutions and consulting engagements that we do, which will help the SMEs grow further we are saying October 2020, it might be November or December also, but we have strategies, plans, frameworks, and consulting services for all of these three phases. And with that in mind, we have launched something called as the Sahayata program, which is a 200 crore initiative, global initiative, basically India and LATAM, wherever we are envisaging that we'll be helping 10,000 SMEs. We'll be either protecting or creating 1 lakh jobs. It's a high touch engagement model in which we'll be interacting regularly with the SMEs. And we have some of the biggest consulting names in the country like Deloitte and KPMG is helping us. It's all pro bono. The SMEs won't have to pay anything. So, and it's a very high touch engagement model. And from a partnership perspective, we are working with Power 2 SMEs and a few other organizations who are helping us reach to you people, the SMEs. And then, so the demand is being helped on the demand part. Power 2 SME and other agencies are helping us. On the supply front, Deloitte and KPMGs are helping us. So that's the whole structure of the program. We invite you to understand the program better and join us so that we can help you out. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair, for that brief introduction of the Sahayata program. And I request all the participants to nominate yourself for the program. That's the link to that is available on the chat. And do also subscribe to our daily newsletter, SME Khabar, where you can find all the relevant SME news in one spot. And now I request Dr. Kumar to kindly take the discussion forward. So over to you, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you, Mr. Zumair. Thank you. In fact, the subject of today's discussion is very, very interesting. And I have been working close to 40 years, in fact, on this particular issue and advising the companies on how to manage their cash flow. And the subject that you chose today, in fact, for discussion is relevant and very useful. Very useful to all the MSMEs in particular all over the country. So, cash flow management and cash projections. You have taken two issues, cash flow management and cash projections. What I mean to say is, what I would like to say is that cash flow management comes from cash projections only. And this is a very interesting subject. We are going to have a very in-depth discussion today. We have, in fact, two very important guests who are experts who are going to discuss on this issue. Mr. Bharat Musaddi, who is the independent financial consultant, and Ms. Manasi Kulkarni, who is associate director, CRISIL SME. So both of them are going to share their views. Before I invite them, in fact, let me give you some inputs that I would consider the important and very relevant for this subject. Well, I would say that many companies, large, medium, small, micro, whatever, business enterprises, manufacturing, service, can fail just because of the poor cash management. Over the last couple of years and 3 years, I mean around 3 years, ever since IBC code came into practice, I have seen a large number of companies going into NCLT and being taken by banks to NCLT just because they failed in cash management. They had plenty of assets. They had invested a lot of funds in the company in setting up the infrastructure, plant and machinery, buildings, and were working very well. But their cash flow management was so poor, the cash flow and funds flow both, that they landed up in becoming stressed. They failed in meeting their commitments. They failed in repaying their installments and interest on time. And in spite of the fact that they had plenty of assets and huge capacities, had a lot of work having gone into setting up those companies, but because of the poor cash management and funds flow management, they landed up becoming NPA and stressed and were taken by banks to the NCLT for resolution and dissolution and whatever the consequences of that NCLT filing. So it can go to that extent if you don't manage your cash flow properly. Now, how difficult it is? That is a question. How difficult is to manage cash cash flow. I would say that it is as easy as you manage your, home budget. What do you do to manage your home budget? You either work on the expenditure side or work on the income side first. First, you determine what is your expenditure if you are going by the expenditure side. If you determine your expenditure on each head for a month, you arrive at what is the total expenditure that you need to manage. And you have to arrange the income or revenue to manage that expenditure and to pay that expenditure, to meet that expenditure. And if you're going for the income side, so you know the income, and according to the income, you manage your expenditure. You fix your expenditure according to what you are going to earn in a month. So either way, you can work your budget. It's not very difficult. You should know one of the things first, and then you have to know this other thing, how to manage that. So you have to balance it. The purpose is, in fact, to balance both so that you are not out of cash and your work doesn't stop. Sometimes what happens is, if the business enterprises are not able to manage their cash flow, it would be difficult for them to even pay the salaries. Sometimes they find that they don't have enough cash to pay for their, bank interest. Sometimes they may find that they don't have adequate money around 31st or 1st to pay for their salaries, or for buying of their, essential commodities or raw material, or meeting other expenditure. That kind of a situation should not arise, and that is why there is a need to manage this cash flow very, effectively, and month to month basis. You have to do it for the first for you start with long term, 5 years, break it down to yearly cash flow, and then yearly has to be broken down to quarterly, and then further broken down to monthly cash flow. And then monthly cash flow also has to be further broken down to maybe fortnightly and weekly. And sometimes it may come down to managing daily also. So because that is the area where, if you loosen your control, or just uh, you know uh, be easy on that and give it to somebody to manage it, or you're not able to effectively control it, you may find every day there is a problem with regard to paying. You are not able to meet your liabilities, and you're not able to meet your essential expenditure. The production may get stopped, the employees may run away. The inconsistency and irregularity in meeting your commitments may lead to loss of your reputation, loss of goodwill amongst the people. Tomorrow people may not even be ready to even give you any credit, whether it is raw material or maybe other inputs. So it can lead to loss of goodwill, loss of reputation, and ultimately loss of business, and land you up in a difficult situation where, in spite of hard work, in spite of uh, putting a huge infrastructure, machinery, plant capacity, orders, and this and that, but because of this inability to manage your cash flow and effectively do that, you may lose out. See, there is one more aspect that I would like to mention, is that sometimes people don't bother or take much care about their debtors realization and inventory, inventory uh, investment, or inventory, keeping the inventory and spending the money on that. So these two major current assets also require continuous monitoring and management, apart from cash, because they are all related to cash and they are convertible into cash. All of these current assets are inter se convertible and interchangeable. So if you are unable to manage your inventory holding, whether it is raw material or work in process or finished goods or whatever, and if you are not able to manage your book dates or debtors realization period, both these may cause an adverse impact on the cash flow management. Your cash is gets affected. Cash management gets affected because of poor management of these two very important current assets. So all three have to be managed effectively and concurrently, so that you are able to meet your current liabilities. One more aspect that I would like to discuss before I invite the guessed, diversion of current assets into fixed assets. A lot of people, while they get adequate, sanctions from the banks, they are able to arrange working capital. They are able to put in efforts to start their business very nicely, very effectively. But over a period of time, what they do is they, knowingly or unknowingly, they start diverting their funds, that is current assets, that is cash, inventory, book debts, and banks' working capital towards spending over the fixed assets in a zeal to increase their capacity or improve their quality or go in for imported plant and machinery or expansion of the machinery capacity. So what they do is, instead of arranging long-term funds for investing in long-term assets, that is machinery and buildings and all those things, some people spend a lot of money on their cars. Some people will divert the company resources, business current assets towards building their houses, marriages. A lot of money goes out of the business or out of the current assets and goes into the sunk assets, either sunk assets, fixed assets, or intangible assets, or their personal, expenditure. So all these money takes away the liquidity from the system, thereby casting a lot of pressure on the working capital and then cash flow. So all these are important aspects. You can't divert your current assets towards, spending over the fixed assets or for your infructuous assets which are not productive. So this also is very important to understand. Now, during COVID time, this problem has further aggravated. Over the last almost now 5 months, more than 5 months, we have seen that the revenue has declined, the sales have declined, the incomes and cash flow has substantially declined. The realizations from past debt, past bills raised, past invoices raised has also come down. A lot of money is not being realized, whereas the expenditure is continuing, whether it is rent, electricity, payment of wages, and personal expenditure, maintenance expenditure. You have to keep some expenditure continuously doing for maintaining your factory or business premises. So all that expenditure has been continuing, whereas incomes have substantially reduced. It came down virtually to negligible level in the beginning, but gradually it has started improving. But even now also it has not gone beyond 40-50%, as I get the feedback from the industry. So in such a situation, it has become more challenging to manage your cash flow because expenditure side or outflow is continuously happening. And that is how the government came into rescuing this business sector by announcing that emergency credit line of 3 lakh crore and then some other distressed fund of 20,000 crore and then 50,000 crore of fund of funds. So these measures have been announced and of course postponing and giving moratorium with regard to the repayment and interest for 6 months, 2 quarters of course. So some measures have been taken, but then ultimately the government cannot manage your business. Government can give you some temporary respite. But ultimately it is you who have to manage looking at the future and planning for the future on monthly and quarterly and 6 monthly and envisaging as to what happens if COVID continues for 2 years. How are you going to manage your cash flow? How are you manage your cash flow? You have to build various scenarios, 3-month scenario, 6-month scenario, 1-year scenario, 2-year scenario, maybe even more. You never know when you are going to achieve your pre-COVID level of operations and when are you going to meet these cash requirements fully as you were expecting earlier. So these are some of the thoughts which I thought let me start with, and the discussion is open. Of course, any questions will be taken up at the end, and let me now bring in our experts. To begin with, I'll bring uh, Mr. Bharat Musadi, who is an independent financial consultant, and he is the best person, in fact, to tell us as to how he is advising because he is a financial consultant also, how is he advising the businesses these days, what are the difficulties that they are facing, and how he is helping them to resolve these difficulties. Mr. Bharat Musadi, over to you, please.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. So thanks for setting the context so nicely. And in fact, you have done a lot of my job, so it makes my job very much easy. But, in all seriousness, this is a very topical kind of issue. First of all, of course, cash flow management is an issue not only with just MSMEs, it is with large corporates also, but MSMEs are the hardest hit. So the cash flow management, the MSME and the COVID situation, all the three kind of combined together makes it absolutely like a boiling pot, you know. So, basically I will emphasize on, the two aspects which are, two sides of the same coin, which is cash flow management and cash projection. So we'll kind of intertwine between the two, because the quality of cash flow management seriously depends on the cash projections, and cash projections, if done very well, of course, will help in the cash flow management, but not the only thing. It is a necessary condition, but not this the sufficient kind of condition. So let's first look at the cash flow management as to what typically a cash flow of a business would look like, or would, what are the components of that. So one is the operation, which is the P&L, which so the cash flow which comes from your operation, which the core operation, that is the P&L, which is simply put, in accounting terms, it's profit after tax plus depreciation. So how much the business is generating cash. As Dr. Kumar said, that in the troubled times right now, revenues are falling and most of the businesses are not able to cope up with the situation. That is because, they have a reasonably high fixed cost. And in financial terms, we call it operating leverage. So, if your operating leverage is high in the current times, it is a recipe for disaster. So you have to bring down your kind of operating leverage to bring down the ratio of your fixed costs and try to variabilize as much of fixed cost as possible. Easier said than done, but it is not impossible. We have seen in large businesses like ours also, but particularly small businesses, I would suggest that try and, for example, the costs relating to manpower, make do with contractual manpower, variabilize, outsource as many activities as possible, even if it is a slightly higher cost, because if you outsource it, then, they are partly variable, at least semi-variable as your operations. Suppose if they come down, you can, based on your service contract, you can let go of that. And similarly, as your operations ramp up, because today there's a unpredictability on both sides, means on the downside also and upside also. And upside also at times, as the unlock down happens, suddenly comes. So, outsourcing it is the key, where you kind of, you can make your costs go up and down in line with your revenue, rather than getting stuck with a large fixed cost, which suppose if your sales come down significantly, or even if it doesn't come down, you have to give discounts, your contribution comes down, you start incurring heavy losses. And, heavy losses, as Dr. Kumar also pointed out, we just cannot fund it through banks. We cannot divert the short-term loans of the banks towards funding this permanent kind of a loss. So that is something which would depend on not only the quality of your cash flow projections. You have to have a very, very realistic projections, and then advise the management that we are kind of trying to keep it as flexible as possible. Again, coming to the projections, I would say P&L projections particularly make the best case scenario most likely and the worst case scenario. Because most of the time in our enthusiasm, we prepare, because, at times the CEO wants it or the promoter wants it, we prepare a best case scenario. And we go with that and we say, okay, this is how life is. But suddenly, we get hit and we find that we are almost close to the worst case scenario and we are not just able to cope up with it. If we prepare a worst case scenario, maybe we will take up a loan based on the worst case scenario. Even if not a term loan, we'll take maybe a OD to that extent, overdraft facilities. So that, if even those kind of contingencies or issues, we can draw on that OD and not incur interest costs when the going is good. So the quality of the projections is paramount to the first, which I said is the P&L, which is the core to your business. The second core to your business is the working capital. And as in fact, Dr. Kumar alluded to that. So I'll kind of, take a little bit of time on this. There are two elements of working capital, which normally every business has, whether it's a large enterprise or medium or small. One is the core working capital, and then there's a non-core working capital. Core working capital would consist of inventory, receivables, and minus the payable. Here, normally in a reasonably sophisticated businesses, and we can implement this in the MSMEs also, is to kind of measure your core working capital in terms of number of days and try to keep those number of days as close to zero as possible. It may appear, okay, not possible, but I can tell you, especially in the days of the COVID, the finance function and the operating function has to kind of work with the kind of promoter on one side, the dealers and the suppliers and the business itself to make it as close to zero. I'll just explain briefly. Of course, inventory, it has to be lean, just in time. Process flow has to be, again, very, very lean. You cannot build an inventory in expectation of a surge in demand. It has to kind of, the inventory has to be at the right level, assuming, as I said, a realistic scenario and possibly a worst case scenario. Finished goods also, it has to be in line just to meet the market requirements, not piling up the inventory. Then the other two are very, very important, where the element of financing also comes in. Receivables. Receivables, okay. One is the receivables where, you negotiate with your dealers or with your retailers to have the maximum number of or earliest collection. The receivables are reduced to as low as possible, but easier said than done again. So here, you introduce an element of financing either through blockchain or fintech, where you discount your receivables or do the factoring here itself, so that your net receivable days are as low as possible, rather than getting yourself funded, because there's a question on the right funding also. So I would say the funding has to be at the level of the business, which is like, if you fund your receivables rather than funding your overall business, you are again linking it with the business cycle. So if your business cycle takes off, your receivable number of days based on your discounting and other factors will remain the same, and it will get funded with the ups and downs of the business, rather than taking either a fixed loan or running short of money as your business scales up. Similarly, on the payables, again, use the factoring and blockchain methods, where the supplier gets his money on time, because the supplier also needs the money, so it is very important for him. But you get the maximum number of days as payables, again using a kind of technique of factoring or blockchain, where using a bank at this stage itself, where the supplier gets the money and you are able to enjoy a good number of days as payable. So in a kind of a likely scenario, I can say that maybe you have a 20 days of inventory, 10-15 days of receivables, and say 30 days of payables, using the core financing techniques at this stage itself. So your maybe the net working or net number of days maybe something like 5 days, and that kind of significantly reduces your risk. So that is what you have to then finance externally with your company bankers, and that takes care. I mean, most importantly, one has to realize that takes care of your down cycle as well as your up cycle, because these 5 days would remain, as the business goes up, it will get financed. Similarly, as the business goes down, the funding will come down. You will not be saddled with a loan on one side and excess cash on the other side. So that is one of the core kind of things where you mitigate your risk as well as finance your working capital, which in MSME I can understand, because they are at the mercy of both the suppliers as well as the dealers or the distributors or their customers. This takes a major chunk of the money. And then the third is, of course, as again Dr. Kumar alluded to, is capex, where at times there is a tendency to spend a lot of money on capex in anticipation or just to modernize. Of course, these are not the times to incur any capex at all. I mean, we in large companies also, we have advised our management that sorry, be the bad person, say no, because this is not the time to incur capex. Again, you can outsource, basically, you can hire somebody else's capacity, because there's significant, so if, luck or fortune smiles on you and your business is doing very, very well, you can very quickly, outsource, because there's significant excess capacity available in the industry, most of the industries are suffering from overcapacity. So you can hire that, we pay a little bit of extra cost, but at the same time avoid the capex, defer it. I mean, at times avoiding may be difficult, defer it to better times, maybe at least 6 to 9 months of deferment is required. So these are very, very unpredictable times. So if all these three measures, the P&L, the working capital, and the capex is optimized using the techniques which I just mentioned, and outsourcing, kind of financing at the core level itself. In fact, capex also can be financed at the core level itself through leasing, through hire and purchase, kind of equipment financing. So at that level itself, then of course again it can ease cash flows. So that is the kind of a core to the cash flow management, I would say. And then whatever is the net surplus or the net deficit or the net requirement, again, I would say that try and negotiate with the bank for a OD, especially in these times. Because see, the bankers would definitely like a working capital term loan because it suits them. Because, OD is kind of gives a unpredictability on their side and of course more predictability on your side. Whereas in case of a working capital term loan, it is exactly the reverse. I mean, they know that, this company has taken 5 crores loan and they will continuously get interest on that. But I mean, you are kind of saddled with that. So if your business is doing well, generating good cash, you are sitting on that extra loan. Similarly, suppose if your business is needing cash, you don't have that kind of a flexibility which a OD gives. OD means overdraft. So try and negotiate a overdraft. Government is coming up with good packages. So, and deal with the bankers which you normally deal with. Because here relationship is very important. So each one would have a unique kind of bankers which they deal with, which they've been dealing with over the years. So deal with them to kind of get your financing and not deal with bankers external to your system, because they would work closely with you. And also in unforeseen circumstances, they will not immediately take you to a NCLT. They would, because of course you have to work in tandem with them and give them enough advance warning that, okay, for this reason, and hopefully the right reason, that my business is taking off like anything, I need a maybe 50% increase in OD. And if you explain to them and they know your history, they know that you are a very kind of honest and a regular kind of a business, they would kind of give you that additional OD compared to a banker or a party whom you are not doing regular business or who is new to your system. So try and work, here the relationship matters more than anything else, which goes without saying. So as I said, the projections and the cash flow management kind of working in tandem would give the, and of course the right funding, which I mentioned at the equipment or at the working capital stage itself. And then to again, a very, very variable structure will give you not only continuity, but it will give you stability. But in order to get the stability, I would say that, not only the cash flow projections, and this is important, but a very, very close monitoring. So suppose you have made a monthly cash flow, but monitor it, weekly or fortnightly. Weekly may not be possible, at least fortnightly, and work in tandem with your CEO, with your promoter. And, even if things go wrong, I mean, the red flag should be raised ASAP, even in the middle of month if required. And that would kind of give the kind of signals to the management that things are either kind of, not going right because the losses are increasing. And of course, a separate set of measures are required, or, funding is required because suddenly the business has taken off and the working capital, the days, there is a need for additional funding. So that may have to be kind of funded. Again, if suppose the bank OD is not coming, one has to work at the receivables level and the payables level to make sure that the funding takes place at the core level itself, so that the business, both the risk factors are reduced and the stability is there. So I think I have covered most of the things. Only another thing I would add is that the risks, which are particularly relevant in this era or in this pandemic time, is both internal and external to the business. External, of course, we cannot do much, but of course, the right forecasting and keeping a very strong tab on your customer segment or in your industry will help you kind of mitigate the external risk. Internal risk comes from things where things are not going right. Maybe you had assumption of say a 5-day kind of a net working capital, and it's to suddenly 15 days. Then you have to analyze internally as to where it has gone wrong. Have you accumulated additional inventory, or your receivable assumptions have kind of not happening, and why it is not happening? Payables, maybe maybe the suppliers are forcing you to pay early. Maybe then get them the right financing. But so one has to balance between the internal risk management as well as the external risk assessment and management to the extent possible, and get the kind of the right mitigation in place and ensure business stability. And in the end, I would say that where the professional advisory services come into place, it helps to set up the right business model, both in terms of the forecasting, the projections, and then the monitoring systems, the right systems in place so that it doesn't go haywire, your cash flow projections as well as your management system, and then work closely. I mean, have some kind of initial hand holding kind of a period with the external advisory service to work closely to monitor both the model and the system and the external as an internal risk until it gets into your DNA, where becomes part of DNA that anything would go wrong. I mean, in the middle of the month, or at the definitely by end of the month or the first week of next month, the flag will be raised to the concerned constituent that okay, this is going wrong. And I can tell you, and with that kind of a agility is over there. So with that kind of agility, I mean, there would be no requirement to kind of have a panic situation. At best, one can go to the banker. That okay, there's a very valid and a logical reason for the fund requirements to increase. So with that, I will now hand it back to Dr. Kumar.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bharatji. In fact, very detailed insight into the practical aspects of cash management. Very interesting. Of course, I am sure that the participants would have got.
Yeah, and I would love to. I forgot to add that I would love to have question answer at the end.
Yes, surely you continue to be with us, and some of the points that you mentioned are really very, very important, particularly with regard to funding. How you are funding your assets, your current assets as well as fixed assets. So that is important, because at the stage of funding, if you don't match with the needs, whether it is a long-term need or a short-term need, you may avail working capital for investing in fixed assets, and you may invest current assets or your cash which is meant for your business operations towards your fixed assets, and vice versa. So that creates a lot of problems. I think that is also very important. Working capital term loan, like you mentioned, and the other examples are very relevant. So let me bring in Ms. Mansi Kulkarni. She has been waiting, in fact, for quite some time. And let me tell you, she is the best person, in fact, as part of CRISIL, who better than a rating agency who is doing day and night the analysis of the businesses, whether small, medium, or large, can advise us better than how to manage the fund flow and cash flow, and how to avoid this kind of stress and liquidity constraints and turning into NPAs and all those problems. I will ask Ms. Mansi Kulkarni to come in, please, at this issue, and specifically asking her as to whether the MSME rating, which I had started in NSIC quite some time back in 2005, is continuing now with the subsidy being provided by the government, or it is kept on hold, or because I understand there is a new rating scheme which is in formulation at the ministry. That is what the Honorable Minister had announced some time back. And the second point that I would ask is whether how far the cash flow management is, effective cash flow management and the strength of the company with regard to managing the cash flow is taken as part of the rating process while analyzing and determining the rating of a company. Ms. Mansi Kulkarni, over to you, please.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar, for setting the context and Thanks, Mr. Musaddi. I think so that he has given a lot of practical advice uh, in terms of like, what all sources SMEs can use at this point of time during this stressful situation, and how monitoring continuously on a daily, weekly basis is going to help. So these are very, very practical insights which Sir has given. Just to add to that, I'm representing a credit rating agency where the evaluations of SMEs, we have been managing this part, like, evaluations of SMEs for quite some time now. And as you rightly said, we had a NSIC subsidy for this product, which was discontinued. And despite that, like in current situation, we are still continuing with our SME grading product. So I would just like to tell that how, as a rating agency, we look at cash flow management, how we try to link cash flow management with the other aspects of business risk, management risk, financial risk, as rightly said by Mr. Musaddi, where, like, your reputation, your relationship with your stakeholders, customers, suppliers, bankers, what kind of role they play. So whenever any rating agency look at MSMEs and their performance, a periodic performance over a period or a futuristic performance, how these individual parameters are so much correlated. So here, actually, I'm going to share my screen. I've prepared actually a PowerPoint presentation. I'll just quickly take you through that so that you understand, because there are, cash flow is an integral part of our assessment, but that is not the only part. So it'll help if I can just show you on the screen. Jayan, can you make me host? Jayant or anyone, I think, so, who has a right to.
Just a minute, we're just working on that, on making you host.
So before it starts, actually, I just specifically during, because we're talking about in the COVID situation, but cash flow assessment was always our integral part of our assessment prior to COVID also. So in any stressful situation, business situation, or not stressful situation, how, I think so, when we are evaluating an individual entity, cash flow has been an integral part right from beginning. And currently, maybe during COVID situation, it is more evident why, like, all these stakeholders currently in the MSME ecosystem, the lenders, OEMs, principal, everybody is now today is focusing on cash flow management. And that is now a critical part of it. So I would just like to maybe, okay, they have made me host.
Yeah, can you
sure.
present them? Yeah.
Sure. So you can see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just take only few minutes to tell about CRISIL. So today we have actually offices all over world. We are actually part of Standard & Poor's global company, US-based company, where we are offering not only ratings, but research and some risk solution infrastructure advisory divisions. And these divisions are actually closely linked with each other. So the research is actually a very integral part of our rating division, by which actually we are able to take a benefit of industry research. So what is the phase of industry, how strong, how discrete the product today in today's maybe situation. Each and every assessment is actually looked at from the industry risk scores also. So I would not maybe take much of a time. So just to cover what is credit rating. So we are in this, like, we are offering credit rating right from 1987. MSME's rating also, we were the founder when we started with rating for MSMEs along with NSIC. So we created a special scale. So our long-term ratings or other corporate ratings are on a scale of AAA to D, whereas we have made a specific grading scale for SMEs, which is a 8-point scale from SME 1 to SME 8. And these are specifically designed to suit a requirement for MSMEs. The benchmarks, the parameters are made to suit SMEs. So these are the users today, like, our assessments or evaluations are being used by not only lenders, which is primarily maybe using, but even regulators, investors, intermediaries are looking at our grading as a benchmark. So maybe these are some of the challenges that MSMEs face, and then maybe in particularly today's situation, a limited credit history or, like, limited capacity building support today maybe is leading to even lenders' confidence, like, of a lack of lenders' confidence towards MSMEs cash flow or the sustainability or the continuity of the MSMEs business is leading to a lot of challenges. So this has become like a vicious circle where, like, to prove the sustainability of MSMEs performance, whereas the lending is not coming, and where it is leading to again a sustainable performance. So this is the scale which I mentioned earlier from SME 1 to SME 8, which we are actually primarily focusing on creditworthiness of these players. So if I focus on this slide, which tells what are the different parameters that a rating agency or CRISIL looks at. So the three main buckets are business risk, management risk, and financial risk. Under financial risk, we have covered cash flow and financial flexibility, which are very, very interlinked, and why I would explain in my further slides. But so these are the parameters broadly we look at when we say business and management. So as explained earlier, your relationship with your bankers, your customers, your suppliers, and how they play a critical role in analyzing the financial risk. So basically, we have a limitation of, like, the financial statements are published, and the financial statements can tell you some story about your relationship with your customer, supplier in terms of some numerical numbers. But CRISIL tried to go beyond that and see what kind of, like, relationships you have, what kind of bargaining power you have, what is the in the value chain where exactly you're sitting, so that you can manage your cash flows in a better manner. So basically, recovering your receivables on time. As Mr. Musadi said, like, I mean, how much you can depend on your suppliers for your credit. Even on a supplier side, you have a limitation. So are there any management dynamics that we view in terms of using some alternate source of funds, or are these traditionally dependent or very tightly managed, only looking at receivables, payables, or are there any mismatch of funds? So when we say mismatch of funds, or when we say that you're funding your short-term requirements with long-term borrowings, or the other way, you're funding your long-term assets with short-term borrowings, this is somewhere we can consider as a risk appetite of the management. So when we look at risk, okay, what is in the past, what kind of decisions management have taken, how they have managed their working capital. So wherever there is a cash flow disclosures are there, we try to see how the finances are being managed. So is it the core business is giving the cash flow, or is it refinancing is the option that is used by the management? So these are highly interlinked parameters. So your competency, integrity, risk appetite of the management are strongly linked with your financial risk, because a balance sheet number or a PNL number can give a point of time reference. But if we want to really look at a long-term perspective, how the industry is performing. So for example, I was saying we have an in-house research team which looks at the industry risk, which looks at the projections the industry is going to be in a short term, like, whether in today's situation, maybe we are saying, are these products discretionary in nature or these are non-discretionary? What kind of demand we are expecting? Are there any dynamics which are globally changing in terms of your import of material or export of material? Are they considerably going to change your industry dynamics? That is also clearly linked with your financial performance. So maybe at this point of time, you have made a very good cash flow from operations. But are these sustainable? Are these going to be sustainable for another 1 year? So the financial position, existing and future, plays a very, very critical role. Along with this, whenever we come across any MSMEs which are actually having a good linkage or a good parent support, or where there is a group, some of the group companies are performing better or strong, we try to give them a benefit. On the other side, if we find diversion of funds towards any weak group company, or a weak business model, or somebody who is at a very startup stage, and where if we see there is an outflow of money going to a group company, where the risk, the probability of not returning the money is high. So even the parent group support can have a impact on your overall credit rating. So just to highlight cash flow. So what do we look at exactly cash flow? So these are some of the parameters that we look at financial risk analysis. And what do we look at cash flow and financial flexibility, and why financial flexibility is also important? Because maybe some of you right now, we have a lot of practical situations given, but today maybe in a business situation, business is very, very tightly managed. Today we have issues of underutilization of the capacities. You need to make your fixed cost payments. Demand is not picking up. I mean, these are some global dynamics which are playing a role, which are beyond your control. But similarly, we not only look at cash flow. So of course, the cash flow is very, very integral part of the assessment, where we look at cash flow from operations. So when we talk about cash flow from operations, are these sustainable, or are these one-off items? Especially in cyclical businesses, that plays a very, very critical role. And that's where the cash flow projections play a very important role, where we would like to see whether these are sustainable cash flows. Similarly, your activities in terms of financing and investment activities. So you must have actually tried refinancing some of your existing loan, or you have tried managing your cash flows by liquidating some of your investments. So again, are these a short-term temporary nature? Are these going to give you some cushion in temporary, or is it going to be sustainable? That is going to be critical. Why financial flexibility? So the cash flow, where we look at so all these ratios, when profitability, debt protection metrics, working capital, gearing ratio, are strongly again linked with understanding how cash is actually getting converted. So even when we look at profitability ratio, it is in tandem with whether the working capital is getting managed properly. So for example, high profitability business in some of the EPC contractors, for example, I mean, maybe the profitability ratios are looking very, very good, but if we look at receivables and payables, we realize that there's a lot of money getting stuck because of the nature of the projects that you're managing. So big 10-year projects can actually lead to, though your profitability ratios are very good, but there is no actual recovery which is happening. So you have again a very high dependency either from a debt portion, or you are investing in the form of equity, or you're getting some unsecured loan to manage that short-term funding requirement. So that remains critical. So let's say cash flow based financial analysis. So what we look at typically, because see, the understanding is in a larger corporates, the disclosure norms are very, very different. So they have to make a cash flow statement disclosed in their financial statements of entities up to 50 crore turnover, or somebody who's having a bank borrowing of more than 10 crore need to disclose the cash flow statements in their financial statements. Whereas we can clearly, evidently can see where the cash flow from operations, financials, and investments over a period. So what is the kind of trend we are looking at? Are we able to recover the money from receivables? Are we able to liquidate our inventories? Are we able to, on timely basis, how year on year dependency is there from cash flow from operations? But whereas in a smaller entities, maybe there is a limitation where there are no disclosures in terms of cash flow statements. What we look at typically, because we have P&L and balance sheet, periodic P&L and balance sheet, we try to see what is the kind of movement we have it in debt repayment, what is the kind of movement we see in working capital. Similarly, try to link it with your planned capital expenditure. So I would just like to take one example here. Like, last year we actually, so this was pre-COVID scenario where one of the entity actually came for a rating, whereas they had a huge capital expenditure plan in place. So they were actually into corn processing, so corn, packaged corn, and they actually thought of setting up a cold storage unit, a big cold storage unit. And they actually take a very big exposure compared to their current operations, current scale of operations. And because of that big exposure with the bank, and these simultaneously, they were supposed to get a cold chain subsidy from government of a substantial amount from Maharashtra government, which actually, once they actually placed the order for all the equipments, and these were supposed to be imported machinery. So they placed the orders, and in between, because of the change in the regulation, Maharashtra state did not actually disburse that subsidy. Similarly, at the same time, there was a drought in Maharashtra where the corn output was very less. So on the operational side, they were hit because of the corn production going down. On the other side, the capital expenditure plan was a very huge in nature, where they could not defer it because the already machinery was installed, placed, and subsidy not coming in. They had to actually invest from their own pockets, somehow liquidating the existing assets they had with the group company. And this has led to actually defaults on the debt repayments. And the case was on the verge of going to NCLT. So this was the situation, and then we realized that, like, what kind of projections the management made, and these are very, very aggressive, without any cash buffer they had, and of course even the external dynamics didn't allow them to perform to the extent which they projected. So in such situation, why the financial flexibility is important. So your cash flow projection went for a toss. You could not project your cash flows because you have not monitored them, because you have not envisaged any kind of issues which can come. Because the cyclical nature of the business. So any agri produce, there has to be a study where, they have in the past, if any kind of natural calamities can actually hit your top line. So future financial position is important. So when we look at in this particular situation, so this was pre-COVID, so maybe the management went very aggressively in projecting their cash flows on a very positive side, which didn't materialize. So what we realized that, what is important is basically operating environment in which they are operating. So what is the dependency on the regulatory requirement? From a regulatory side, can something go wrong? What is their dependency on industry? So what kind of trends, for example, a corn producer can actually go through? What is the company's own operation and past trends? Whether they have any time in the past faced a similar situation, whether they were able to come out of it. So drought, they had actually in the past faced a similar situation, and still, they went with a very aggressive projections. what is the key ratios? Are they like, financial ratios? Again, are they sustainable for whatever projection they're showing? So based on all these parameters, if you do the sensitivity analysis, so when we say sensitivity analysis, the kind of project reports are prepared, CRISIL as a rating agency will always sensitize these numbers. So any kind of future cash flows will be sensitized based on industry trends, based on our internal study of how the industry is going to perform, based on our understanding of cyclical nature of the business, based on our understanding of any future calamities, or are there any chances, because in the past you have faced similar issues. Are there any raw material shortage? Like for example, in today's situation, some entities actually importing raw material from outside India, what kind of challenges they are facing, and then are these materials domestically available, but are they going to hit your profit and loss account, and similarly cash flow from operations? So these kind of sensitivities are carried out on all kind of projections. So it is important to note that any kind of rosy cash flow projections may lead to may not lead to a very good credit rating, because there will be a sensitivity based on different parameters. Similarly, we are also not denying cash flow is a very critical parameter, but what if, today the industry or the business dynamics are not that strong? In that situation, are we only looking at the cash flow generation ability of an organization, or are we looking at beyond that, beyond operational performance? So when I say beyond operational performance, is what is the kind of, so okay, operations are not doing well. Maybe today the businesses are not running. For May, June, we have information that people have operated at a zero capacity, started in June, July with a zero, maybe say 50% capacity. And with the availment of moratorium, they're able to manage their cash flow. But what if, after October, where moratorium may not be there, how are they going to manage their cash flows? So today we are getting into, of course, the financial flexibility was always critical, but today it is now very important for us to understand the financial flexibility of any organization. So when we say financial flexibility, what is the kind of reputation they have? So earlier also during this discussion, we have mentioned that reputation and relationship that you enjoy with your stakeholders, say customers, suppliers, bankers. Are you enjoying a good reputation where you can avail any kind of financial concessions? So for example, today we have some auto dealers.
Nancy, can you please speed it up, because
Sure.
I don't know how long this presentation is, but if you can speed it up.
Yeah, this is the last slide actually. So today actually we have one auto OEM with us who has been asking a bank guarantee from the dealers they are working with. But today I think so, because of the reputation, if the dealer is having a good reputation, they are ready, because they understand the business dynamics. They're ready to give some liquidity to their dealers in terms of not giving the bank guarantee, or maybe reducing the amount of bank guarantee, and that is giving them some kind of cushion in terms of liquidity. So I mean, these are the very, very critical points that we look at in our overall assessment. So beyond cash flows, maybe what is the kind of reputation, what is the relationship they are having, what is the core strength of your business, and how you are able to manage, what is your group structure. And these are the some of the other critical parameters that also we will assess. So that's it from my side. Dr. Kumar, if you can just take.
Yeah, thank you, Mansi. It was very exhaustive. In fact, we were very interested, because people don't know how the ratings is done and what are the parameters that people should, take care, because this is very important. And all these details that you mentioned are really very important. But I was just, looking at the time, so I had to slightly, remind you. But nevertheless, we are within time. There is no problem. Thank you very much. It was very useful, because sometimes, we interact with the rating agencies and the rating senior officers just to understand as to what are you looking at, what parameters are you looking at, and how should we prepare. So this is a very useful information that you gave. Now, please continue to be with us because there will be some questions. Mansi, I hope you don't mind spending some more time with us. Okay. So let me bring in
Sure, sir.
Mr. Bharat again for a while with a specific question, very brief question that one can answer as to what is the ideal current ratio that you would recommend during this stress time. I can understand in the normal times you can say that 2:1 and cash holding of maybe more than 1 month. But what is the your advice as a expert financial consultant during these stress time? And this can become a benchmark even for future also to save on financial interest cost. Mr. Bharat, are you able to hear me, Mr. Bharat?
Also,
I think you are muted. If you can unmute Mr. Bharat and then speak.
Okay, just a second.
Yeah, now it's okay.
Yeah. Now can you hear me?
Yes, now it's okay.
Okay.
Please tell.
So in terms of the ideal current ratio, see, there cannot be any prescription because we are here represented by a wide range of industry. And I would say that, I mean, it would vary from industry to industry also. In fact, the exposure which CRISIL has to various industries, so Mansi also would have definitely views on that. But from my perspective, I would say that, a lower current ratio in a FMCG, where things are moving very fast, or an industry where, in the current business cycle, FMCG industries are doing very well, whether on the food side or, grocery, toiletries. So where, a current ratio of even 1.2 would be quite okay, I mean, that would provide enough comfort, I think, to the bankers as well as basically, what the promoters are comfortable with. So if they are seeing that inventory is moving very, very fast and, there's no kind of hold up. So, we can operate 1.2 and maybe at times, if it is the demand is growing very fast and they are stretched on resources, they can look at even 1.15. But in areas where there are long lead times, where, for example, in automobile industry, where I come from, there's a long lead time in terms of both the distribution side as well as procurement side. And there are significant receivables and payables and, payable, of course, you have to monitor, and inventory. So there, current ratio, I would say that, 1.25 itself would be stretched. One would ideally look at 1.3, even in stressed times, because of the long kind of lead time, which results in good buildup of inventory, whether it is finished goods as well as raw material, from the time it kind of, you start work in process. So it varies from industry to industry, but I would say that, of course, it should not fall below 1.1 at all, even in the most stressed of situations. So you can operate on that. I mean, it may look,
Yes.
I think a conservative person like CRISIL would say, what are you talking about, 1.1?
I think what you say is very right. Let me bring in Mansi here. During the normal times, 1.25. I mean, we have been working on, as a banker, we have been working on 2:1. And normal times, what you suggest,
2:1 would require significant funds. This time, I would find it very difficult. Again,
I was just going to say something. What I was saying is, during this time and during the stress time, even 1.2, 1.25 looks like a luxury. What people have been managing these days during COVID time is less than 1. And that is how they are facing so difficulty to continue their operations. A lot of service enterprises have been closing because they are not able to manage their cash operations. So let me bring in Mansi. How is she experiencing with regard to the actual situation with a lot of enterprises who are coming for rating? whether they are able to operate even at 1.2, 1.25, 1.2.5, or you find they are working below 1. Mansi?
Correct. So in today's situation, I think so it is very, very critical. So that's why I'm insisting that only financial ratios are not going to help. So what we are doing, so for example, current ratio, when we say current ratio, current assets minus current liabilities. Now, what is the quality of these current assets and current liabilities is very, very critical. So when we say what is the quality, so somebody
Mansi, you are breaking, you can't hear you.
Dr. Kumar, I think she has some network issue, connectivity issue. So meanwhile she joins us back. You may please have it.
Okay, let me, we have heard a lot. My only point is that even if we are able to operate what Mr. Bharat suggested at 1.2 across the board, I'm not talking of FMCG, of course, is in a better position because their movement of, cash is very fast because of the liquidity that they generate on daily basis. But even for slow moving, cash generating industries also, during these times, even 1.2 is also, as I said, is highly, satisfactory. And rather, I would say is a luxury at 1.2. So,
Yeah.
But you should not never be below one. And I take into account the
Fully agree.
observation made by Mansi that your quality of assets also matter. It should not happen that your liabilities are so liquid that they are just on your head, whereas your assets are so illiquid, although they are current assets. But you are not able to realize, even if it is 1.5 or 1.4 or 1.3.
Yeah.
Quality
You put
also
it very,
matters.
very rightly, Dr. Kumar. You put it very, very rightly.
So it has to be, such a good balance, and that comes only from your personal monitoring. That is why we call it as cash flow management. That management
Yes,
word is so
absolutely.
important. And who better than our experts, financial consultant, Mr. Bharat would know, and of course Mansi. Both of them are financial, belongs to the financial field. And some of the issues that you people raised are really very, very relevant and very important. Financial risk management is another important issue which Mansi raised, because financial risk is another risk which is related to the quality of assets and liabilities. You may be very comfortable in-house, sitting there managing the cash flow and current assets, but then at the end of the day you find that the quality is so bad that you cannot recover and your liability is on your head. And of course, your bargaining power, the quality of your bargaining power and your goodwill and your credibility, which is looked at by the rating agencies, plays a very important role in continuing your operation. If you have credibility, if you have goodwill, you can manage your shortfall in cash by raising, same day, the money or shortfall on the same day. You can just pick up some money from one or the other source. But if your credibility is not good, your goodwill is not good, you have not been meeting your commitments in the past, nobody is going to help you out at that moment, and you may lose out on your
That's
business.
very,
That is, isn't it, Mr. Bharat? What do you have
very
to say?
important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that is very
Especially in these
important.
troubled times, that's very important. That's why I said softer things like relationship, your credibility, those are the things, because see, things will go wrong. And that is when, if you have
Absolutely.
built your bankers, you can just go and tell them that, okay, my current OD limit is 10 crores, but I will can you sanction me another 2 crores? They will give it. But if you don't have trust, credibility, and the relationship, then you are in for trouble.
Yes. Is Mansi back with us? Mansi, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm back, but I'm just keeping my video off because I think so the bandwidth is limited.
Okay, doesn't matter. The points that you raised, we were only discussing those issues, the quality of assets and the credibility and sustainable cash flow that you mentioned. Sustainable cash flow can come. That is another very important point. Only when you have the strict monitoring, strong control, and credibility of your operations and cash flow.
Correct.
Sustainability can come only when. Otherwise, the entire planning will go haywire. So good points. Mansi, I would like to
Yes.
know one more issue from you, if you are with us. How to strictly avoid mismatch of funds. That is rampant in the business enterprise.
So
I
as
don't know whether it is by
yeah,
please
it is
please
very,
come.
very evident actually from some of the assessments that we do that we, as during our presentation, Mr. Musati has also informed about mismatch of funds. So 2, 3 points I would like to highlight here. So one is your mismatch of funds in terms of diversion of your funds. So for example, a continuous diversion of funds to some group companies, continuous inflow, outflow also. So even inflow in terms of like, some group companies funding your operations intermediately, I mean, how do we really see, because see, as a rating agency, sometimes we have group companies financials available with us. So because we have a pool of companies we have evaluated, we know which industry is going through what phase. We know, in some of the industries, it is very, very evident of creating group structure, in terms of investment companies, some subsidiary companies where money is getting parked, and then it is not traceable. So when we look at a consolidated performance, we can make out where the money is it sustainable, or is it going out of the business very frequently, or even in terms of any uneven inflows. So I mean, this is the kind of mismatch we observe. Second is so typically in the businesses where the receivables and payables, maybe receivables and inventories are not very uh, of good quality, you're not getting your receivables on time. I mean, you have certain set of customers where you're not able to recover your money, or because of your nature of your operations, typically these companies tend to highly rely on some temporary funds. Sometimes these are interest bearing funds, sometimes these are non interest bearing funds, but still, are these sustainable? So we look at how the mismanagement is happening. Second aspect is
Right. Right.
earlier discussed, funding your long assets. So long-term assets in the sense of fixed assets, investment with your short-term borrowings. So you're availing some short-term funds from some sources, some banks, and you're trying to deploy those funds somewhere in long-term assets without
Right. Right.
I think so making it evident. But when we look at the cash flows, if they are disclosed, or when we look at the fund flow statements, if we compare the balance sheet, it is very, very evident that this is the kind of, so this is where we talk about management integrity, risk appetite. Are these sustainable? So typically, even any kind of project risk, so when we evaluate project risk, we know that the long gestation projects where the returns are going to take time. I mean, these kind of can actually really lead to a lot of mismanagement of funds, and if anything goes wrong, these are all aggressive projections you make. But if
Right.
anything goes wrong, your long-term assets are
Yeah.
not really materializing the revenue or top line. It
Yes.
can hamper you. So these are typically
Thank you. Thank you.
mismanagement of
Thank you,
funds.
Mansi. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think we got the detailed answer. So let me go to now Zumair and Sodamni. Sodamni, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So should we start the questions? If you have any
Yes,
questions.
sir. So we have some questions, and the first one is that it is said that the relations with the bankers have to be in tandem with the industry. But what should
Yeah.
MSMEs do when there is genuine demand of finance, even during normal time and now COVID period, and the banks are not giving 20% of additional amount out of 3 lakh crore allocated for the MSMEs duly eligible? Thus, not being able to do justice to the cash management, banks are not assisting. What should be done?
Do you have some other questions on cash management so that we can answer together? Or Mr. Bharat, would you like to take this?
Yeah, so I think this has been emphasized by Dr. Kumar and Mansi, myself, that your credibility and the relationship with the banks is very, very important. And if these are there, and then of course the government is giving that additional window And banks, one should really look at, the bank side of the story also, that see, banks would be interested in doing business. I mean, if they have the kind of, the go ahead from the finance ministry to give that 20% extra. And, so there's no reason, if, your relationship is good, to kind of give that 20% financing. But still, if that bank is too bureaucratic, I would suggest then maybe change your banker. But definitely, I think at the core is your relationship. And I think you would know that, because, we say the relationship in the corporate relationship with, forget about bankers, with the suppliers, with the dealers or distributors. I mean, you know in your heart how the relationship. If you feel that the relationship is not getting anywhere, you change your banker. Otherwise, I think
let me also add that banks have been mandated to provide 20% to the eligible borrowers. If you are one of the eligible borrowers, eligible means you should have outstanding as on 29th February of 2020. So if you had outstanding, you are eligible for 20%. If the bank doesn't give 20%, you must write your complaint, send it to, there is a Champions portal which has been opened by the Ministry of MSME. Just go to Ministry of MSME, open the Champions, lodge a complaint, you will receive the addressal in 24 hours. That is what they have mentioned. And they will write to bank and take it up your case. So Damini, I think we should...
So the next question, so this is the last question. Are there tools apart from Excel that smaller businesses can use or build for cash flow management? What's your advice to smaller sized companies to build an early warning system to escalate potential cash flow issues much ahead of time?
Mansi, I think this question is for you.
Okay, so hello? I mean, there are actually some of the tools. You're able to hear me?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay, so so there are actually some tools available in the market where, like, cash flow can be. So these are projections. Like, see, these are some of the research firms are operating, or maybe some CA consultants are actually, they have developed this in-house tools to go for projections. So how do you manage the cash flow? So maybe your local CA consultant can help you with these kind of tools. But these tools are available in the market. But if you can go through your local CAs, your consultant, which can actually, the market research firms, they have these readily available tools where you can input your data, you can transpose your data, and CRISIL does not have it at this moment for MSMEs, but I mean, these models will help you.
Okay. So Damini, over to you.
Sir, that's those are all the questions we have for today. And I would like to thank our panelists for this excellent discussion this afternoon. And thank you so much, Dr. Kumar, for facilitating this. I would like to thank all our participants, and I would like to tell you that we do these webinars in collaboration with Vadvani Foundation, who has come up with the Sahayata program, which helps MSMEs by providing them free consultation from top consultants from Accenture and BCG. So the link for that program is in the chat box. I request SMEs to definitely please look this up. We have left a feedback form and another questionnaire. We would like to keep these webinars centered around small business concerns. It would really help us if you let us know what are the areas that concern you, and we can divert our webinars in that direction. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bharat. Thank you, Ms. Manasi. Thank you, Zumair. Thank you, Sodhamini. Thanks, bye. See you next week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.